Mansfield today on a Sunday, and time to get into the garden. And I've got very bad news for you, by the way, because I don't think they've been planted in a pot plant exactly as you said they should be. And I suddenly realized where I've put them. So I don't think my Hideko bulbs are going to actually do that well.
Why?
Because I've put the bowl, the pot, right next to my outside shower. And while I was showering over the weekend, last weekend, I thought to myself, oh, these poor little things, sitting, looking like this and going, ew.
No, man, the bulbs are fantastic. These are Amaryllis that you've planted, yeah. And I mean, they are just the most forgiving plants. I've got mine in my back. I don't even do anything to them. I know the person we're going to speak to is going to be horrified, but he knows my theory of chaos theory gardening. So I do nothing. I don't do watering. I don't feed anything. I'm terrible. I'm like the worst plant mom in the world ever.
Right.
Okay, but I see that my fireworks, which is also an Amaryllis, which I planted 8 years ago.
Yeah.
It's just coming back, and it's got like about 20 bud heads on it at the moment. And it's the brightest red plant that you could ever possibly imagine seeing. Bright scarlet.
You're talking about somebody who's going to shout at you. Who's that going to be?
Well, before we talk to him, because I can see him at the moment and I don't want him to shout at me, okay? But by the way, you can officially say it is now spring, although I don't know what happened to spring. I think we had 3 days of spring, and then we were fully into summer.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's true.
So unpacked all of the summer clothes, which is fantastic. It's my favorite thing. Put all the winter woolies away, and life is good. And life is good when it comes to people going for their summer bulbs as well. So to talk to us today, Jeremy, we have the main man, the head honcho of Hideko bulbs here in South Africa, and it's Charles Barnhern. Good morning, Charles.
Good morning, Mel. Hi, Jeremy.
Hi, Charles. Nice to have you with us. Thank you for taking time to join us. You started off, if I'm correct, as a family company, Hideko, about, 70 odd years ago?
75 years ago, we started growing gladioli corms for cut flower for delivery to the Johannesburg flower market.
Jeepers, that's quite a history for a flower company.
Yes, yeah. and of course now one of the world's biggest exporter of bulbs around everywhere, including when it comes to what we were talking about, Amaryllis.
Yeah, right.
Why is Amaryllis actually such a big thing? I mean, that's probably your biggest market, isn't it?
It is actually, and we export Amaryllis in particular, and other bulbs as well, but we export Amaryllis around the world. And some of the main markets there are Europe. And in much of Europe, especially in Northern Europe, Scandinavian countries, and also Germany, the Amaryllis is used at Christmas time very much more than a Christmas tree or anything else. It's the main celebration flower for that time of year.
And it seems weird because, of course, I mean, they're starting to flower here in South Africa, but I mean, everything works topsy-turvy when it comes to the Northern Hemisphere. So how on earth do you get them to flower at Christmas time when they're flowering here, which is not natural for them to be doing there?
Yeah, exactly.
Great question, Mel. Yeah, and that's actually something that you can do very easily at home. So an Amaryllis left in the ground in South Africa will flower in October. Typically, and if you keep it out of the ground and you extend its winter, in other words, put it into a fridge and plant it later, then you can have a later flowering time, and that's what our European customers do. We deliver to them around this time of year, and they pot them up over the next few weeks, and then of course they flower a little later, but they don't mind it at all. They've just had a longer rest period, a longer winter.
You know, what advice would you give for Jeremy for his plant, which he seems to be determined to kill?
Well, that's the nice thing about bulbs. Mel, you know this well. I mean, they really are quite bulletproof. They do like some regular water. That's kind of their main demand. But otherwise, they really are very easy. So, Jeremy, I think report back to us in a few weeks, and I think you're still going to get great results. They're determined to flower for you. Let's put it that way.
Well, I'm just worried what they're going to see with me in an outside shower.
Oh, that could be quite frightening. They might just come out and go,
Ah! Go straight back in.
But now, of course, you're not just doing bulbs, you're also diversifying into other fields as well. What is your main focus at the moment? Apart from bulbs, obviously.
Really, everything about beautifying the garden and the home. We're trying to sort of add the finishing touches to your garden and to your home, and one thing just kind of leads to another. We keep sort of just discovering new things that go well in gardens. We've got a massive R&D program to try and find new plants to introduce, both indoors and outdoors. Obviously, mainly bulbs, that is our core focus, but that in itself is a very wide, encompassing range of plants. So we don't just we don't just talk about true bulbs, but also things like corms and tubers and rhizomes and the entire scope. And that really does cover a lot of different kinds of plants. And in addition to that, we're also helping to introduce new kinds of pots and plant foods, and just anything that's related to gardening, and also indoor gardening as well, which is worldwide becoming more of a thing, let's say.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mel's been talking about the indoor gardening and how important that is becoming, and it would be a natural extension for your business.
Absolutely. The trend as well, people over the last few decades really have been having smaller gardens and moving into townhouses, and indoor spaces are becoming more important. It's not just that space is becoming more at a premium. It's also that I think people are discovering that plants really do finish the home and add a lot of life and a certain joy to the home that nothing else can provide really. And also with time, we're discovering more plants that do better in the shaded areas inside of a home as well.
Now, one of the things, of course, is that when you come to bulbs specifically, I mean, they get the most glorious flowers, but they don't need to be pollinated, do they? Because they're a bulb, so it's actually the bulb that's putting the flower out and not seeds.
Yes, so obviously a bulb will try and multiply itself in multiple ways, actually. And let's take the Amaryllis as an example. It will produce beautiful flowers, and those can be pollinated and produce seeds, which will have obviously diverse offspring. And you can do that at home, where you can cross-pollinate different varieties and produce your own new differentiated offspring. But also the mother bulb, we call her, will make her own daughter bulblets off of the side of the mother bulb, and that's cloning. So if you've bought a particular variety, let's say the famous double white alfresco, and you've planted it through summertime, you'll find that by the end of the season, that bulb will have made a few smaller bulblets that are absolutely identical, in genetically identical. So they'll have the same flowers after 2 or 3 years when it comes to their own flowering time.
And I mean, can you then just nip those off the mother bud and plant them again?
Yeah, and it's rule of thumb is if you can tease, it's kind of like a thumb off to the side of the mother bulb, and if you can tease that daughter bulblet off without breaking her, you'll feel the point at which she wants to come off. If that daughter bulblet is quite willing to come off, then that's the right time to peel her off and plant her separately, and that daughter bulblet will take about 2 to 3 years to flower on her own, Jeremy, until she's mature.
And then bees, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
I
was gonna
one
ask
of our
you that.
things that we talk about a lot, and I think it's been a thing worldwide, and big ups to France and places like that who've actually banned a lot of the insecticides, because, I mean, bees are a bit of an issue around the world. We don't have bees, we have no pollinators. But now, that's something else that you're looking into as well. What are you looking at there specifically?
Yeah, and it's also been something of an evolution for us. We've picked up on a lot of sustainability programs to to help our customers around the world that not only are we more sustainable, but also we're proving that we're more sustainable as well. And we're doing many things, obviously, to achieve that: less insecticides and more organic, and the recycling. And what's fallen into place with that as well is that we're getting into bees in as many ways as possible. So we're introducing bees to our farms. We always have anyway allowed outside beekeepers to make use of our fields, but now we're actually putting more permanent beehives up on most of the farms. And also what we're doing is to help gardeners get into beekeeping. It's still early days, and we ourselves are we're training up many of our staff to be able to enable this. But the idea will be that we're going to be selling beehives and through garden centers and through our regular customers, and then also providing some degree of service as well. That if somebody wants to get into beekeeping, we provide as much of the information and as much of the products required as possible, and also the recommendations as to where they can get bees as well.
But what is the problem with having bees in an urban area? I know that, do you have to have a specific size property to be able to have a beehive, or can it be like a little eighth of an acre?
Yeah, the actual bylaws do vary from region to region, area to area, and that's also something that will help to try to provide those links to those resources, of course. But obviously, you do need a certain size garden, and you need to have respect for your neighbors as well, and to ensure that the beehives are kept away from disturbances in particular. So that might be dogs, children, lawnmowers, things that will disturb them as well. On the other hand, it is in most gardens, it is quite practical and possible to keep a beehive, but obviously a little bit of research and understanding needs to go into it before beginning.
Yeah, and just don't get across their bee line.
Oh, for goodness sake.
No, seriously. I know that whenever I've gone and done things on beekeepers, and we have done it quite a lot on TV, where we've gone to go and visit and see what the bees do, because of course bees are fantastic, and the honeys that you can get from it. I know you've got honey from blueberry farms, from book and hoat farms, and floriferous indigenous flowers as well. The types of honeys these days are amazing. Yeah. But you should never get across their flight path coming into the hive. That's one thing I do know. Yeah. And especially as I'm like chronically allergic, I just tell them, hi, bye, I'm out of here now. So you must be good.
Yes, right. And I've had enough of you now.
Okay.
So you can
likewise
make a beeline.
I'm going to give you a fright now so you get rid of your hiccups.
Charles, thank you very much for your time. And thank you for sharing some of your future goals with Hedeco.
Thank you, Jeremy. And thank you, Mel, as well.
Okay, we'll speak to you soon. Take good care.
Thank you guys for watching as well. And we'll catch you same time, same place next week. Get out of here, Mel.
Okay, I'm out of here. I'm going.